Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio. We're doing an energy talk here at European Utility Week, and I am joined now by Sergio, Edgeir, Thomas and Simone, and they'll introduce themselves later. But we're here to talk about how you would influence behavioral change within the consumer and why you would want to do that. So we're living in a world where we're prioritizing energy efficiency. Governments, regulators, and people who feel good about this sort of stuff want to change their energy behavior. We're playing with things like demand response. We're heading perhaps to an area where no one has quite succeeded yet. There's still a lot of issues to be dealt. And Thomas, if I can come to you, can you give us a view of the landscape? Where are we?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I'm Thomas Mikkelsen from VaasaETT, and when looking at what has happened in the past 5-10 years, we've been seeing a move from a very centralized look at how can we make people save energy, how can we create new business models, and also this centralized view, as we see it, has proved itself wrong. Nobody really wants to engage with energy when it comes to very centralized solutions where you are not yourself part of it. And then we've seen a move then towards, so how can we then engage more with the end customer? How can we actually make these new business models, the energy savings, all the political demands work? And then instruments like tariffs, information campaigns has come into, and also these apparently do not work. So the only thing left now is actually to really engage with the end customer, to make them understand what it's all about, and to then make a collaboration instead of just forcing all these initiatives upon them.
So what we're kind of saying, after 10 years of trying, the only thing left is the logical first step, which is to talk to the customers, find out what they want, and then let's see whether we can make this work.
That's the learning curve, yes.
That's the learning curve. 10-year learning curve. Welcome to the utility sector. So can I just go to you, Simone? It's like Thomas mentioned it. Tariffs. You know, you've got some experience on that. Can you just tell us a bit of the view of tariffs and how those were brought to bear and what happened?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Simone from R.S.E. R.S.E is a public-owned company from Italy. We provide consultancy to the Italian government. In particular, in my department, we work on energy efficiency and demand response in the residential and tertiary sector. I come to your question now. Tariffs are very important because the customer pays electricity according to the tariff. But the tariff alone is not enough to engage customers. Some customers read the bill even once a year, or just don't even read at all because it's paid on their bank account. So tariffs must be supported by other tools, by other instruments, which make it easier to reach, it is easier to understand for customers. For example, ICT is very important in this field. So customer engagement with ICT can be a next step to make customers more aware of their consciousness about energy.
And when you talk about the customer engagement piece, so it's like, what are they engaging in? Are they engaging in the tariffs, or are they, you know, what is it that you think they should be engaging with?
It's they're engaging in energy efficiency. I mean, all the behavior which can improve the energy efficiency, like for example, switching off the lights when leaving a room, lowering the temperature from their thermostat so that they can save money at the end of the month, for example. All these kind of actions which can be simple or sometimes even more complicated, but in the end they go to the objective to save energy and in the end save money for them, but for the whole benefit for the whole electric system, which a customer, a residential household, a condominium, an entire industry is a part of the whole system.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm just going to move the narrative on a little bit, and Edgeir, I'd like to bring you in, and I'd like to bring you in from the context of, you know, you design these systems that help energy companies engage in their customers. I'm going to get a bit controversial in a second, but let's set the scene. from your point of view, what are you seeing, and give us a little bit of an insight in your world, and how these systems can be brought to bear, and what some of the real benefits are out there as well.
Thank you, Adam. First of all, coming from Enoro, we are providing software for the energy companies, and we are, so to say, pioneering energy markets. And today we are showcasing our new analytical solution for understanding both markets and also customer much better. And I think I would like to address this by telling a story that I was sitting in a customer meeting with one of our really big clients, and they were asking us that, okay, we see all of this stuff happening in the markets right now, and we are really having troubles on understanding what is happening out there, and seeing energy storage coming in, seeing micro-production popping up, potential microgrids, etc. And then they pulled up the extreme. I would say it's extreme, it's not possible right at the moment, but they said that in 20 years, we as a grid company, we might have lost 80% of our customers. What should we do? And that's actually the question that put us into mind, that what we need to do now is to try to connect utilities and end customers much closer. And the first step in that is to actually reach out and understand before trying to influence and change the behavior. Because at the moment, I think that many of the utilities we see, they're not actually connecting with the customers. And one example of that is that when we are asking customers, what do they care about? 76% are saying they care about the cost of the bill. So it's a bill they care about. But when we talk about with utilities, what they're trying to do is something completely else. So they are trying to address this by customer engagement in different sorts of scenarios, and somehow these statistics do not click together today, and that's what we're trying to bridge there.
So you're saying the customer just cares about the money they have to hand over.
76% care about that, and then it's a question mark on what are the different drivers. Some about customer service, and some about energy efficiency, and some about insights. But mostly it's about the cost of the bill.
And just to complete the story and introduce you to our panel in a logical way. So we've had the market design issues, for want of a better word. We've seen an example of how the tariff way, just that alone doesn't work. We've heard about how what the customer view is, and that disconnect. And you come from a world where you're trying to put things into the customer that will kind of maybe bridge all of this potentially. So tell us a little bit about, you don't go into business, you don't go into market without seeing a gap. So how do you layer onto this gap?
Thank you, Adam. I'm Sergio from VaasaETT company. I'm a Spanish company related to a smart home sector. Since many years we were designing and producing commercial devices like thermostats, like power meters, like internet gateways. Okay, and we see this gap at the market because the users need commercial solutions, need easy to install devices, simple to use devices, elegant devices. Okay, and what we're seeing is that the solutions that were offered to them were like laboratory solutions, okay, pilot projects, but to achieve a real user engagement, we have to focus on the customer, okay, and the customer is focusing on the bill, okay, and the devices that must be easy to use, easy to install, to ease the lifestyle and improve the comfort. Okay, these are the keys.
I mean, in observing this market, is it not fair to say that while the customer cares about the bill, they actually don't want to do a lot of work to get that bill down?
Of course. Yeah. Maybe I can contradict that. Because when we are looking at what people are saying and then how they're actually behaving, yes, they're saying they want the money, But then when you're actually looking into how they behave when the focus is on the money, then they will actually get very disappointed. They will really get lack of interest in engaging with their energy company when it's all about the money, because then it's get a very negative story, narrative, as you put it. So what we see is that, yes, of course it's about the money, but the way you introduce the whole story of the money, you need to start another place. You need to explain and educate and create this engagement and the positive narrative around why is it that we want to engage with you? What is it that we can accomplish together? I think this is an important thing because, again, as we saw with the tariffs alone, it doesn't make it. And the reason is, yes, the money comes in, but it's in a negative way.
But isn't it one of the other things, and guys feel free to chip in, you know, I sometimes feel that, you know, when you have a lot of the studies coming out or when we talk about the customer, we lump everybody in as the customer. You know, there's a big difference between someone who's a retail customer, an SME, for example. I run a shop, so if I save 5% on my energy bills by having less lights or more efficient, that's significant. But that very person may behave very differently at home. You know, where should we be focusing?
For example, if you own a cabin up in the mountains or something like that, you don't use that cabin during the weekdays. However, you use it maybe in the weekend. So different types of customers, that's a very specialized type of customer. And the point is when you know those customers much more, then you can address them. However, I would also like to say that if we look upon the products or services brought to me as an energy customer today, it has more or less been the same product for 60 years now. For some time ago, let's say 60 years ago, we started getting kilowatt-hour meters. So after that, we have been measuring everything as kilowatt-hours. And everybody is selling kilowatt-hours. And strangely enough, in a competitive market, you should think that there was innovation in how to actually come with a new service to the market that you can package in a totally different way. That's not happening right now at the moment. However, we are seeing that aggressive market players, then they are actually starting to do something about it, to put things together in new ways. And I think that's where we will see a lot of innovation, that energy services and energy products are put together in new ways, so that they are actually disrupting the whole kilowatt-hour scheme that has been existing for 50 to 70 years.
Can I bring you in on that? I mean, isn't that one of the issues as well, about how we present these things? You know, it seems to me that, I mean, when I first started in the energy sector about 5 years ago, it's all incredibly technical. And it was almost only after 6 months of being in this sector going, you know what, I actually understand my bill now. You know, it took me that long. I mean, what's your view?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I have to study all the different parts of the Italian bill. I mean, there are a lot of parts, but I work in the field, but I spent a lot of time to understand. So for a customer, it's almost impossible to understand. So you have to present things in a way that are easy to understand for them. We will not talk about kilowatt hours or kilowatt power, but use other terms which can be more easily understood by him, by her, and so they can translate into practical tips. Like, for example, as more value, a tip to how you can change behavior during this day, than like a figure on his bill to show how much he has saved. I mean, it's easier to use, so we have to explore different ways to interact, to talk with the customer at their language, because customer is not a black box. And even the same customer put in a different context has different reaction. So the context sensitivity is very important. And so every utility, every stakeholder who have to deal with customer has to explore all the surroundings of a customer, because customer also is not a black box, but is a social human being, so he interacts with others. So it's important also to lever on the competition fact, for example, on the imitation fact with other citizens who are around him. So it's very important.
What you're describing is actually quite difficult to do, isn't it?
Of course.
Because not only does it need a change in behavior from the customer, it also needs a fundamental change in behavior from the supplier.
Yes.
I mean,
that's a little bit of the excitement we see, because if you take energy companies, we have maybe 3 different classifications. You have the producers, you have the grid companies, and you have the retailers. And especially on the retailer side, or the supplier side, we see more and more companies coming from who do not having a utility background at all, but they're coming in there as pure market players, either from insurance or they're coming there from real marketing purposes. And I think that's where we can see a lot of different innovations. So when we are talking about customers or energy customers, we cannot classify all of them in one box. But that's also the same way with the utility companies. We cannot. It's not one typical utility companies. We have many different types. So and each one of them will have the opportunity to approach their customers quite uniquely, depending on where they are.
and yeah, just following that along, coming to your space, the smart home space, every year is the year of the smart home. We'll never quite get there, but we're going to get there.
The next year.
Yeah, the next year. But but in that itself, there is some of the issue, isn't there? It's like because all of this needs to be convenient, and I don't want to be running around turning my washing machine on at the right time and everything. I want this to be done for me. And I'm talking about a very personal level. And that gets even more complex when you talk about it on an industrial level. When you talk about someone owning a whole retail outlet and monitoring whether they can put the freezers down by 3 degrees, and that's a lot of cash. Isn't that where your sector needs to kind of step up and provide all that connectivity and offer, make it easy?
Yeah, I think we have to provide these solutions.
Yeah.
I think these solutions have to be promoted in different sales channels, not only utility companies, because I think the utility companies have a great inertia, okay? And now the end consumers doesn't know the existence of this type of solutions, okay? So I think first we have to engage the users, okay, and then the users will ask their utility companies to change from being the demand of the bill and to become an energy partner, okay? That an energy partner that explains their bill, that provides some tools, easy to manage, that install in their homes. I think this is the key.
Sorry, I will come to you, Thomas, but what's interesting there is that we need to engage the consumers to change the energy company.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that the wrong way around? Shouldn't they be changing?
Yeah, no, that was part of my point.
Yeah.
And I think when you walk around here today in UE and look at what it is that is on display, it's about Internet of Things, it's about all the things, but what's the value of Internet of Things? I mean, as you're saying, what is it actually that the utilities want to get out of it? What kind of target is it that they're setting? What is it that they want to achieve? And on the other side, what is it that is in it for the end customer? So whole this thing, I like your word there, Simone, on being contextual. I think contextual is actually one of the things we will have to work on now. This is where we can actually make value for both utility side and the end customer. And one thing we're doing now is developing this natural language of energy. And I think this is about understanding how can you actually create something which is not technical, because that's also part of it. You need to speak in a language so that everybody understands.
And kilowatt hours is not is not what everybody understands.
Yes.
I think that's an engineering term, and somehow I think regulators have also done quite a lot of different things there. So set requirements that you need to show the bill in this and that way. So I think that thinking creatively and thinking about simplicity really, that's important to reach out.
But what was very interesting to me was when you did your piece earlier, and you were talking about a customer that was coming to you, I don't know whether they're potential or existing, but you said, you know, they're sitting there saying that we are probably going to lose 80% of our customers.
Yeah.
And what do we do?
Yeah.
That's 18?
Okay.
Churn,
80.
right? 80? That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. And the interesting part of that is that this was not a supplier, it was a grid company.
Exactly.
And grid companies, they have a monopoly today. And the thing here is that this was based on a prerequisite that we get an extreme set of new technologies coming in. But that can happen. We see Tesla coming in with home batteries, and there's a whole gang now coming up with equivalent there. And if that really takes off, then it can happen. You even get a disruption in what has been looked upon as solid infrastructure for 100 years. It gets disrupted. You can actually get off-grid customers, and then actually monopoly companies like grid company, they have lost their customers. So that's not an unlikely scenario. However, it's not going to happen in the next 3 years either.
But what you just said is not an unlikely scenario. You know, if we were having this discussion 10 years ago, you would be a heretic, right?
Exactly.
You know, like, this guy's mad, never invite him to a panel again. but the world we're living in now, that's very real. You know, you mentioned Tesla, Tesla with the Powerwall, ABB are now launching something similar. It's probably got a less sexy term on it, but you know, but it's still the same same thing. So, do you think that that is really where the dynamic is? So, I look at you because I can see mashup solutions between someone like a Tesla, someone like you guys with your thermostats and all of that, to provide, you know, here you go, energy in a box. Yeah. Put all of this in and cut the wire.
Yeah. Maybe we are working also at this type of scenarios, okay, in which the self-consumption can be a possibility. And yeah, I think more or less what we are trying to say is that in fact utility companies doesn't want the consumers to reduce the energy bill. And they want to reduce their churn. They need to achieve more customers instead of energy savings. I think it's the key. It's controversial, I know, but it's a key point. Okay?
Well, you do have a dichotomy. If I look at the UK market, you know, so on the one hand, we want more competition. On the other hand, the way this competition manifests itself is in a very commercial, market-driven model. So you've got shareholders. What do shareholders want? They want return. You know, but on the flip side, on the other hand, we want people to use less power. You know, the analogy is a bit like going to CocaCola and saying, look, I kind of like this, but next year we'd like you to show 5 other people how to make Coca-Cola, and we want you to sell less and make sure that these other people make more. And something about it just doesn't join up right, does it? I mean,
but the thing is, if you're comparing this to telecom, which is the obvious thing to do, of course the telecom sector didn't want people to get independent of their grid. And the thing is, when we ask people about what they want to be independent. This is so appealing to them. And that is the interesting thing here, that actually, all of a sudden, this idea of, oh, so it's actually possible to be independent of the grid, that's a whole new concept, and it is so attractive that people actually want to pay to do it. And that is interesting because that can drive a whole market.
Yeah. And is that what you're seeing as well? I mean, is the desire actually, I want to be in control? And no matter how many engagement programs you give me, I still won't feel in control.
No, a customer has always to be left in control of everything. I mean, if I have the fear that someone from the external world can change the temperature of my fridge or make the dishwasher start at 3 a.m. in the morning, I mean, I feel uncomfortable. I mean, but if I am left the power to decide if I want to choose when I want to start my washing machine. I mean, even if it's only 1% of the time, I'm always in control, I feel better. I mean, this is a requirement, a very strong requirement. Customer must be the owner of his household, his industry, his shop, so this is very, very important from the customer point of view. So independence is a part of this.
But in that ownership, aren't we still, if we were trying to define the sweet spot of the customer that we can take on this journey, the more we talk, isn't that your SME business, where, it is a significant part of the bill, and that on the consumer side, there's a large chunk of people, and I include myself in this. I hate to say it, even though I'm in the industry, I actually don't care. I'll pay my bill, I can afford to pay, but I don't care. And then there's another chunk who, and I wrote a quote I use, customers don't care, and the ones that do don't matter to the utility, because they're at the bottom end.
Just to support that thing, I was talking to one of the leading energy suppliers in one of the areas where we are, and they are extremely market-driven, and they say that our customers don't care about electricity, and if you one day wake up one morning and you're really, really driven about energy, then don't call us, call the doctor. So it's really true. Even in the absolutely most market-oriented say that, and that's why they need totally different ways of addressing this.
And what would those ways look like? Let's give ourselves, just to end off, the difficult job, right? Let's assume the commercial customer, actually there's a very logical ROI thing. You run a small business, if you could save £30,000, why wouldn't you? From the energy side of things. You have the segment in society, and I'm not sure I want to go there, where energy is very important. It's because they can't afford it, and I think we need to protect those from the market forces, personally, on a human level. But there's that middle in between, the difficult to get at. I mean, how do we get at them? And do we need to?
That's the starting point, right?
I think there is a trade-off, between all of these things, between comfort, between energy savings, to understand the end user approach, if they matter or not about the bill, if they have surrender and say, send me the bill all months, but I don't care about it, I don't understand, and I think this is the start point, to give some common sense to this market, and start focusing on end consumer. That is one of the points of our NATCONSUMERS project. Start thinking on them, and give them the real things that matter for them. It's not only the bill, it's comfort, it's things that are easy to use, that knows if you are or not at home, but you don't have to be all time with the mobile phone changing the temperature, and I think this is what they need, to know, this is not the kilowatt unit, it's what is consumed by a neighbor, some people, for example, are different from another one. This is important to context the people segmentation. Some people need to share, for example, their energy savings at Facebook, social networks, or other not. And so we have to create different tools for different people. Starting at this point, and then I think we have to promote them. People need to know that they are at the market, and then they will ask the energy providers to supply these type of tools to them. It's like Wi-Fi at the hotels. I think I don't imagine a future where the people cannot see the energy consumption in real time, and the local core don't imagine a future in which the wash machine doesn't know when to start to start. Okay?
But that is somewhat also the elephant in the room, right? We haven't talked about the appliance manufacturers, and I've seen a whole study done that actually the energy efficiency in appliances has done more to reduce our energy consumption than any other program whatsoever. So these guys, just by manufacturing this stuff, are getting better at it. And when all of these things will get smart, because I believe you me, in 10 years' time, washing machines will come with a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth thing. You know, isn't that when we're ready? You know, don't we need those foundations? I mean, Thomas.
But of course we need these foundations. But it's how do you get there? And it's about understanding the needs of the end customer and creating this relationship before you all of a sudden do not have this relationship anymore, and then you're out of business. So it's about staying in business, and it's about achieving the goals of actually reducing the CO2 emissions. And then it's about understanding what we discussed before, this contextual message that in this chaotic, complex world, if we can achieve just one element where people, the consumers, are feeling a bit more calm, then we have actually achieved a lot. Because if they can just relax and say, yes, I know that my bill is actually not higher than it should be, and I can even now with all the sensors that I've got know that the temperature and the humidity and the CO2 in my rooms is actually right for my baby to sleep in this condition, then I can rest assured. And then we also are actually getting back to our starting point where this relation between the utility and the end customer is just a matter of actually trust. And this is where we want to be if we want this to succeed.
And what we're selling, and you use the word, surely what we're selling is comfort.
It is.
You know, that's a whole different way of looking at it. And we're coming to the end of our time here, so I just one or two more points. From your point of view, I mean, if in the scenario that you described about the feed-in tariffs, if you came at that from a comfort perspective, do you think the whole outcome would have been different?
It will be one element. I mean, it will not alone will not be enough, but it can be one element to tackle this difficulty. Maybe we can be the right lever to go into customers' house and see how we can manage to improve their behavior and improve their energy efficiency inside their buildings. So make it a practice. It just makes is proud of using this energy efficiency practice.
And then just to finish off, you know, do you think, not necessarily you, but your ecosystem, the market that you believe is there, you know, is that going to be able to give the utility, whatever shape that looks like? I mean, in the UK it's Sainsbury's, you know, there's all sorts of weird and wonderful actors in it. Will they have the tools to have that contextual messaging, do you think? Is that already possible?
It is already possible, that's my standing point. The key element here is I would say, the mindset and actually the obsession of really trying to understand and get the insights up in the daylight, and not try to approach this with imagining stuff and then test or try to control or whatever, but actually really take the obsession about customers for real and then turn that into something that you're working on, so that you're not trying to push them or drag them or whatever, but actually work with them.
And just as we close off, I'm still fascinated by your comment of losing 80%. You know, the rest of you guys, just in one word, is that how real this issue is? You could potentially lose 80%. Will we all agree on that in a scenario? Well, that's quite nice. We'll leave it on that. Yeah. We've got a quorum.
It's an open question.
But hopefully it's given you an indication of how real this issue is. And indeed how complex. The word contextual came to the fore, comfort came to the fore, and one size doesn't necessarily fit all. So thank you for joining this energy talk. We hope to bring the issues to the forefront and some of the complexity as well. Thank you for watching, and many more on engerati.com. Thanks.